Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Trucker Tank. Today we have Frank G. Trucks, and he's going to talk to us about trucking primarily and all the things that impacts truckers. And without further ado, hey, Frank, how you doing this morning?
Morning, Van. How's it going?
Oh, if it's any better, I couldn't stand it. I'd be twins, and that would scare the world. If you had two of me, it'd be a problem. So I asked you to be a guest today for a simple reason. I wanted to find out a little bit more about your business, and I'm going to leave that as an open question and just let you freewheel it and tell us a little bit about your business.
We're in Nashville, and we're a broker and a small trucking company. And we do a lot of stuff in the agricultural industry, a lot of dedicated stuff. Have been doing that for about 25 years. We also do some government contracting, and that used to be, some years ago, about 70% of our overall business. And then when my son took over the company about 8 years ago, he moved more away from that and into the commercial world, and started turning up the agricultural stuff that we do. And we have a big shop, and we build and sell trucks and refurbish trucks. We even build a couple of custom trucks for some race teams over in Charlotte and things like that. So, like so many people, I found out that when I retired, I went from working 50 or 60 hours a week to 100 hours a week. So that's pretty much what we do. We move a lot of milk. That's what we do, and we use dedicated carriers, and then here in Nashville we have some small local accounts that are smaller local accounts that we've had for years and years and years, and we service them. My dad started this company in 1963, wow. And I got to a point, like so many young men, where I was so much smarter than my dad, and just
right.
Yeah. And just knew, so much more than he did. And so for several years, I went off on my own and did my own thing. And then later, when his health started to deteriorate some, I came back into the business and took it over. And I ran it for several years. And then about 8 years ago, my son, who'd been in the business since he got out of school, he came to me and he said, "Time to go, old man." So I help him now. I help him with whatever he needs help with. If I'm there. And I do a lot of stuff he hates to do. Like I do all the taxes and permits and contracts and all that stuff that he doesn't like to do. Sure. And as you can see behind me, these days I work from home, and he actually kicked me out of the office, and he runs the show down there. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do. Our main business is brokerage and agricultural, and everything else we do is just kind of sort of keep me busy and out of his hair.
Yeah, I'm going to circle back to one of the comments you made. Working 40 to 50 hours a week. I remember my first part-time jobs too. I mean, when you own a company, it is at least 80 hours a week and sometimes 100 hours a week, and it's 7 days a week a lot of times, and 14-hour days. It's just crazy how much it takes to run a company. So if somebody's looking at starting to run a company, make sure you got that level of commitment, because if you don't, that company's not going to succeed. It really takes that many hours. Or buckets of cash and hire a bunch of people that's going to do it wrong, and you're going to have to straighten it out anyways.
Yeah, well, that's how I started watching and following you. And I was watching you sell BullSnot, And you're probably, you see, I got some behind me back here. I can
Yeah,
never get it right when
I
I'm
can
on
see
camera.
it, Frank.
I started watching you and following you and your product. And when I met you finally, and standing out there in the heat and selling BullSnot, and I said, well, hey, this is a great product. You're doing really good. And I had it in my head that you've been at it maybe a couple of years or whatever, and getting it off the ground. When you told me that you had been doing it for 17 years, I almost fell over. I mean, because yeah, and I use that in my show. I do a show on Tuesday nights, and I use you as an example all the time. I said, guys, if you don't have that fire, if you don't love it, if it's not what you do, then don't do it. Do something else, because
Amen.
you're probably not going to be around for a long time. And that's what, when you start a company and start running a company, longevity and sustainability are the two things that you're after. I'm really proud to tell people that my dad started this company in 1963, and it's still going. We're still doing, even a lot of the stuff that he used to do back then.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about a few specific subjects. One is, I hear you help truckers get into their own trucks, and so what's the process for that, and how do you do that?
It varies a little bit with everybody. You have to start out with, so many people are getting into this business now, and I'm not really sure why, because opening a pizza joint's a whole lot easier.
Oh,
but and it seems to me like you have to know a lot less. It's certainly less regulated. It's certainly less complicated, and the initial investment's less. But first thing you have to find out is, what do they want to do? Get some idea. And if they don't have an idea, like us, we're in the agricultural business, so we own 125 tankers. So is that the kind of work you want to do? Is that the kind of business? Where are your customers? What's your customer base going to be like? What kind of equipment do you need? And then once we do that, then we can get a better idea of what kind of equipment they're looking for in a truck, and what they need, what's going to serve them best, what's going to be the best thing for their application. So that's where we start. What are you going to do?
Yep.
And once we kind of figure that out and get that going, it's pretty easy after that.
Well, talking about that, and who your customer is going to be and what do you want to do, how about expounding on why it's important to build local relationships?
That's the old school thing. You've got these guys out there now, and they'll buy some customer list from some guy they've never seen before or heard from before, and they'll start calling these people, and on these lists that they don't know how they do their business, they don't know what they do, that kind of thing. And the way we started in the brokerage business years ago was we had a trucking company, and we had 55 trucks, and we had a pretty big customer base here in Nashville. And anytime our customers were growing and getting bigger, and they wanted more equipment, we just got to a point that, we felt like we were at our sweet spot. We had about 110 trailers, and we didn't want any more, and we didn't want any more trucks. And so I would call around, the local guys here in Nashville, and ask them if they could help me. Hey, I got 3 loads left over. Can you help? And they would call me same, and hey, Frank, I got 2 loads left over Tuesday. Any way you can help me? Yeah, sure. And we started doing that with each other, and have been doing it for years and years, and still do. And they were all local customers, because the business model back then was, you have a good, solid local customer base, and they send you out into the world every week, and then you come back and you do it again. Sure. So that's why it's important. And two, if you work with people in your community, in your area, and I'm going to say, 25, 30 mile radius, give or take, and we have some customers 40, 50 miles away, but there's a chance that person, and you have things in common with them. You might not know it, you might not know that that person, but it might be somebody that you go to church with. It might be somebody that your kids play soccer with. You know, it might be somebody that you ride motorcycles with, and they're local people, and you start out, you know, with that in common, and then all the other things that you have in common. And it gives you a better opportunity to build a relationship with them, and a long-term relationship, you know, a long-term business with them. I like to walk in and meet people, Van. I'm no good at calling people on the phone and you know, trying to get away with that. I've got to walk in the door and see somebody face to face and talk to them and ask them for their business.
You know, it's funny that you say that. Just yesterday, somebody walked into my business and they were trying to sell janitorial supplies. But I didn't realize who they were, didn't meet them. They're local from Calhoun, just right down the road.
Yeah.
Jack's Star Supplies. Turns out they call on restaurants, they call on a whole bunch of others. And before they left, they were wanting to carry the whole lot of BullSnot. Just crazy. And they just walked in the door and Marty, he called, he said, "Hey, you got to get back here." And I said, "Why?" He said, "There's a big company wanting to do business with you." And I was like, "Okay." So I went right back. And, but it's funny just walking into somebody's business, say, "Hey, I'd like to haul some of your loads. I'd like to do business with you." Just that simple statement, because they know you're local, they'll take you serious. And then you can get some dedicated routes. When you get to dedicated routes, you can start planning, and every single week you're going to be saying, "I'm going from here I'm going to Natchitoches, Texas. You know, from Dalton, Georgia to Natchitoches." And then you find a load coming straight back from Natchitoches to Dalton. So you bring in chicken or coleslaw or whatever. You know, if you've got a reefer. If you don't have a reefer, you might be bringing steel or even mesquite wood. It doesn't matter. You can find the routes to where this week I'm carrying it down, and then I find the back route, bring it back. That leads into a question I've been wanting to talk or ask you about. Are load boards good or bad? Or indifferent?
No, they're good. They're good. What they started out, you know, we've been in business for a long, long time. So, you know, years ago we didn't have them. We didn't even have the internet, you know, for that matter. But and so you had to depend on the relationships you had, and what everybody back then called their book. You had a book, and that had all your shippers, all your carriers, you know, everybody in your book, and those were relationships. So back then, you were forced to build relationships. You couldn't just get on the internet and pick a load from, you know, Van's Trucking Company in Dalton, Georgia, call him up and get the load. It didn't work that way. So when the load boards first started, I had a relationship with the guys that started up Truck Stop, and they would call me and say, "Hey, we're going to do this. What do you think?" You know, and I was one of several people that they called for advice because we were in the business. So what those were designed to do in the beginning, they were a place where basically shippers could put their loads and carriers could find them, you know, and connect. And back then we called them, and it's a bad word now. Everybody, you know, I'll get in trouble for saying this, but back then it was just a backhaul, because you had your customers, you know, like you have your customers, and they sent you out into the world, and the idea was to get that piece of equipment, that trailer back and that driver back home, you know, get another load from your customer, keep them happy, and go do it again. So that's how it started out. Now it's kind of morphed into a thing, and a lot of people, and if you know, I know you've been on my show several times, and I bitch at everybody every week. They were never designed, you know, those load boards were never designed to run your company on. You know, there are guys that get up in the mornings and they've got, you know, 1 truck or 10 trucks or even 20 or more, and they turn on the internet and play connect the dots on those load boards. Well, right now, you know, it's kind of a bull market on those load boards, and the brokers are having their way with people. And as fuel as high as it is, people are struggling. You know, they're having a rough time because they don't have that core customer base. They don't have, you know, the people like we're fortunate to have, you know, to deal with all day, every day. And when rates, you know, need to go up or the fuel surcharge needs to go up, we call the customer and they go, okay, you know, and that's what we do. So
Yeah, but that brings up a very key point. One, the rates are insane. I talked to a trucker this morning. He's out in Seattle, Washington, and there was a bunch of stuff on the load board at $1.90 a mile.
yeah,
How in the hell do you stay in business at $1.90
you
a
don't.
mile?
You don't.
You're going bankrupt. You just don't know it yet.
You don't. But that's why, on my show on Tuesday night, that's why I, you know, thump on the desk and scream and yell and tell these guys, that's not what the load boards are there for. But it's so easy. And for the last couple of years, rates on the load boards have been great. So these guys get up in the morning, turn it on, and they're getting $4 a mile, $5 a mile. And the broker will say, "What's it going to take?" And you go $4, and they go, "Okay." So now it's changed, it's turned, and it does that all the time. What goes up always comes down in this business.
Yep.
And if you don't have, that core customer or two or three, see, now you said, a second ago, you said, well, the rates are terrible. My rates haven't changed in years. I mean,
I know yours has, but I'm not talking about yours. Yours kind of a separate. You're your own broker, the whole 9 yards. Your rates are decent, but I'm just talking about specifically on the load boards because that's where this trucker he's looking when he called me, and we're just shooting a bull. It's Saturday morning, you shoot the bull.
Yeah.
But you don't shoot him with anything but a BB gun, or you ain't gonna get any BullSnot. So you just kind of. So, anyways,
all things in perspective.
All things in perspective. But that's what he was telling me. It's $1.90. I was like, you can't haul for that. And he says, no, I'm gonna sit here till I find something better.
Yeah. And if all you do is rely on the load boards, somebody else is setting the rate. You're not, and somebody else is basically running your business. And I can't. Say, we don't use them at all. I have them, I've got them on my computer, and I mean, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, I'll see enough stuff, online and from my customers and my carriers, and I'll log on there just to see what's going on. And it's crazy. I look at that stuff and I go, man, I can't believe these guys are doing this. But they do. They get up in the morning, they turn on DAT. Well, there's a load going to New York, so I'm gonna go to New York, and it pays real good. I'm going to do that. So they go there, and then when they get to New York, they find out there's nothing there. They can't get out. They're stuck. Like you said, $1.90 a mile. Well, good luck with that.
Good luck.
We've had the same customers for years and years, and like I said, my rates to my trucks, I meant to my trucks, my rates to my trucks haven't changed. Every year we have to rebid for next year, and it's the same on our dedicated agricultural stuff. We rebid that every 2 years. So the rates stay the same. And I use the same I've got carriers that have hauled for me for over 20 years.
Wow. And that means you're doing a good job and you're servicing them. People will pay higher rates for good service.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody out there that's a trucker, listen to me carefully. If you take care of your customer, I guarantee they're going to take care of you. They'll pay a higher rate. If my freight's not damaged, they take care of my product. They, not throwing pee bottles out at the docks. Just be professional, and I guarantee you'll make more money being professional.
Oh yeah,
and be courteous.
That's why we don't have to use the load boards, because carriers call us and we call them. We build my big word, Van, is it's relationships, and it's been that way for years. We want to use carriers that we know. I don't want to send some guy I don't know into one of my customers, and then you get what you're talking about. Pee bottles in the parking lot, or they run over their bushes, or they go in there with some attitude, at my customers, like, if you don't load me in 15 minutes, I'll pull out of here. I don't want to treat my customers like that.
Or the one that I love is somebody gets there and they don't know how to back up to the damn dock. When you can't back a truck, don't come see me. Just don't even fool with it.
Oh yeah, and I can send new people. I've got one customer, and every once in a while I'll send somebody new in there, and they'll call me. The guys on the dock now, not the guys upstairs that you do your rates and your business with and all that. The guys on the dock will call me and they go, "Hey, Frank, who is this son of a bitch?" This guy you sent there, he can't even back up. Hell, we've been standing out there laughing at his ass 20 minutes. I'm trying to back in the parking place. And I'll go, look, I know that guy. He's a pretty good guy, or I wouldn't have sent him in there. Help him back in, give him a shot. He'll be all right. Well, all right, if you say so, but hell, he can't back up a truck. We just thought we'd tell you that. Okay, thank you, And that's my relationship with those guys. They
Amen.
call and tell me that.
Yep.
And,
That's perfect. Well, I want to back up to something you briefly mentioned previous, fuel surcharges. How come a lot of, truckers don't charge fuel surcharges? They just not know how, or, all big companies, they charge fuel surcharges, but a lot of the independents, they don't. I mean, what's the deal on that?
They don't know how, and it's killing them right now. I mean, it's just putting a lot of guys, really putting them under, and they don't know, they don't understand it. They don't understand how it works. And a lot of brokers, a lot of these, especially the big brokers, the big guys, they won't pay it, and they'll tell you that. They'll just tell you straight, our rate's all in one rate. You do what you want to do with it. We don't pay a fuel surcharge. We never have. Well, the fuel surcharge is set up by the federal government. It's not some imaginary thing or, something that those of us in the trucking business dreamed up one day. And it's actually, the suggested fuel surcharges are actually posted, on the Department of Energy every Tuesday. DOE, you can log into it on your computer, DOE.gov, and you can find a fuel surcharge for your region on that area. Wow. So a lot of people don't understand it. They don't know how to work. Now, the guys that do, conversely, the guys that do, like our brother, Joe Denny. Joe Denny understands it very well. Okay?
No doubt.
Yeah. And when Joe calls a broker, he's either going to get his fuel surcharge or he's going to adjust the rate to make up for it. And he knows what it is when he calls. He knows what he's looking for. He knows what he's going to do. And that's why a guy like Joe's been out there for 40 years and survived. When it goes up, it goes down. Joe's still there. He's still there.
Joe's actually 49 years. Next year will be 50 years as a professional truck driver.
Wow.
And Joe's thing is he preaches, don't take cheap freight. He says, let it rot.
Yeah.
Don't even fool with it. Don't take cheap freight.
I use him as an example on my show. I go, guys, if you're going to get out there and try to run, back in the old days, we used to call guys like Joe gypsy truckers or wildcat truckers. They get out there and they'll go, if the rate's good enough, they'll go, and that's what they do. And that's how they make their living. And you've seen Joe in Portland, Oregon, and I was 3 or 4 weeks ago. He was in Manhattan. He delivered a load in downtown Manhattan, New York City, New York, and he's not afraid. He's not worried about it. If you pay Joe Denny's theory is like my dad. My dad said there's no such thing as a bad load, just a bad rate.
Yeah.
You want me to take your stuff? That's what I'm in business to do.
Yeah, so, I've heard Joe say that many, many, many times.
I use Joe as an example on my show because he understands all the components of the thing. When he puts the puzzle together, there's a picture there. And so many guys get into this business and don't. Fuel surcharge right now is just absolutely critical. If you're not getting it, you're not going to be around. So, you have to understand it. And I've dedicated my show to it. In fact, this coming Tuesday, the title of my show is Fuel. So if you're not managing that, these big companies, these big mega companies out there have people, they have a department, and that's what they do. They buy fuel. That's it. That's it. They buy fuel, and they buy futures. And they're burning fuel right now that they bought 2 years ago for 97 cents. So they've got the guy. I know the guy at Covenant just because I'm friends with David and a lot of people there, and their fuel guy has a staff of 3 assistants, and that's what they do. It's such an important part, of our industry and our business. It's such a big cost that they've got people that just sit there and do that all day.
Yes, sir. Without question. Well, What's your thoughts on ELDs now, and how's it impacting the trucking industry?
When ELDs first came into play, and they did it, they implemented it like they do so many things. We had a little time to, get our mind right or whatever you want to say. When ELDs were pushed by the ATA, which is, in Washington, and they got a 5-story building and a lot of money, and they're supported by the ATA, is supported by the mega companies.
Yep.
And so that's where it came from, and their idea was you put this electronic log in the truck, and it was all started by Werner 20 years ago. You put this thing in the truck, and it tells the driver when to work. Okay, the bell, it's like Pavlov's dog. The bell goes off, time to get your ass up and go to work. Get out of that truck stop and go to work. And that was, what they were hoping for. That and the DOT, wanted to be able to track their activities, logging to make sure they were legal and all that. What happened when the ELDs were implemented, a lot of the companies out there lost about 20% productivity and 20% usage on their equipment. And that's a big number. I mean, that's
a huge number. That's your all your profit.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. I mean, because typically you're going to be somewhere between, 11 and 13, 14?
Oh, if you're good, yeah. If you're good at it, about 11, 12. The thing of it is, Van, and I'm not sitting here suggesting that everybody was illegal before that. They weren't. They were not. But what these guys do now, especially the younger drivers, the guys that are new to the industry, they'll sit there and stress over that clock and worry about that clock. And the truck stops, there's so many trucks out there, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the truck stops are full. There's nowhere to park.
I mean, I've seen that for the past 3 years. Everywhere you go, you ain't finding a truck parking spot.
No. You try after 5 o'clock, good luck. And that's why, these guys driving their cars and taking their families on vacation, they see all these trucks parked on the ramps.
Yep.
Rest areas are full. Everything is full. Well, a guy with an ELD is driving down the road and he's looking, watching the clock. And if he goes over that 11 hours or that 14, either one, if he goes over his time, he gets a violation. And most of these big companies, punish you for that in some way or another. And he's looking, or you can get in trouble with your CLD, and you don't want that. So, or you're in violation. So they start looking and go, well, I only got an hour left. I got 4. I better find a place to park, and they'll do it, and they don't use their time. And then when they get to a shipper that holds them up, that holds them out in the parking lot. Our friend Trucker G sat for 13 hours yesterday waiting to get unloaded, just sitting there. It just burns that clock up and burns that clock up. Well, they were sleeping while it was going on, but his clock wouldn't let him go. So these guys are strapped to that thing. And that's part of what we do at G3. We build older trucks. We refurbish them that don't require ELDs and don't have all this new emissions stuff on them. And they're legal. They're perfectly legal. And the guys can get out there, and a lot of the old school guys and a lot of new school guys too, they like our trucks because you're on paper logs. You don't have to mess with this DEF fluid and all that stuff. And you can just get out there and run your truck and, manage it yourself.
Yeah, and be a professional driver. I mean, and to me, if a driver's going, here's what I don't understand about ELDs. Reason, I actually went to Washington with Trucker Nation and started help try to educate the FMCSA about ELDs, how it impacts business, not from a trucker side, but from a business side. But looking at it from a trucker side, they're professionals. These are not just Sunday drivers. They're professionals. And if they're going down the road and they know there's a crash up ahead and they know there's going to be a 3-hour delay or 4-hour delay, why not give them the courtesy of pulling over, taking a nap, being off clock, and then they're going to be fresh. And the other thing for me, I've even had a wreck because of this. I can't drive too well in the daylight. If it's sunshiny and warm, I go to sleep. And that's what I did. I'd want to sleep, almost kill myself. And so now I know that propensity comes on. And when I get sleepy during daytime, nighttime I drive all night long, not a problem. Daytime, I still have an issue. So I'll just find a Walmart, pull in there and take a 30-minute hour nap. And then I'm fresh, get back out on the road. Truckers should have the same rights. And
Yeah.
when we put the ELDs in the trucks, to me, that's like Big Brother saying, I'm going to tell you what you can do, when you can do, and how you can do it.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
And so just from a logical standpoint, I was going, this is disrespectful to a large degree to a lot of the professional drivers. That's where I come from as a business owner. And because they're always racing the clock, you got to hurry. If they didn't have to hurry, and when I met with the FMCSA, I said, look, the guys that are running paper laws, they're not rushing me to get unloaded. They get bumped the dock. They'll come in, they'll talk to us, they'll go to our bathrooms, they relax a little bit, then I can talk to them. They're not rushed, and they provide better customer service and better experience than the ones that are on the clocks. And it's just that simple from a business owner's perspective.
Well, Rex with commercial equipment, since the implementation of ELDs, Rex have gone up 17%. That's a lot. That's a lot of Rex.
I'm not surprised.
And what you see, going down there like me, with our trucks, and we're old school. We got the big old Peterbilts and all that stuff, and we run up and down the road. And I still get out and ride around once in a while, but what you'll see is like in construction zones and school zones and stuff like that. These guys on these ELDs are just burning. They're just flying through there because they're trying to beat the clock. They're always racing the clock. Everything those guys do from the time they wake up until the time they shut down is on the clock. And that's just, it's just another level of pressure. It's just another level of stress that you put on these guys, and they don't need it. They have enough. They have enough to deal with. Totally agree.
Well, Frank, tell everybody how to find you on your show on Tuesdays on Facebook. And I know you're fixing to start up another show with Shaggy on Mondays. So tell everybody how to find you, where it's going to be, what time, where it's going to be playing, all that good stuff.
I've got a small group. It's a private group. It's called G3 Trucks and Freight on Facebook. And you have to join the group to see my show, because I just do it there. And I got, it's a smaller group on Facebook, 2,000 people, and we don't do trolls. If you troll, if you sneak in there and you try to troll my show, I will absolutely dedicate myself to humiliating you until I get tired of it, and then I'll throw you out of the group. But
and he will, guys. And his show is priceless. I'm telling you, I enjoy it big time.
I've got a lot of friends on there, and these are guys. A lot of them are guys that have been in my group for years, and they've done work with us. They've been to the shop and had their trucks worked on, and I know a lot of these guys. And it's kind of like you with your posse. We're friends. And I just, I talk like we're sitting around the campfire. I don't talk like, I'm trying to do a show and all that. We just talk about things. And there's in my group, there's hundreds and hundreds of years of experience. And they help each other, and that's a big thing. And one of the guys, I'm not going to wear him out because I don't want his head to get too big. It's already big enough. I love to have Joe Denny on there. And Joe will get on the show, and he's great. Man, he's great. And somebody will say, well, what if I'm going to run out of hours? And old Joe will go, oh, God, you had to bring that up, didn't you? Well, here's what I do, And he just goes, man. I mean,
he does.
Joe, with Joe, if it's going around here, in a minute, it's coming out here. And
amen, whether you want it to or not.
Yeah, what you see is what you get. And that's why we try to do things. But we're on G3 Trucks and Freight. Oh, hold on.
Yep.
We're on G3 Trucks and Freight on Facebook. And then Shaggy's group is Shaggy's Consulting and Training. And Shaggy and I have just been friends for a long, long time. And I went up to, I met him. I was trying to steal one of his drivers about 10 years ago. And that's how I met him. And I was trying to recruit one of his drivers. And his driver said, well, I drive for this guy, Shaggy. And I'm like, well, What kind of name is that for you? You know, who calls himself Shaggy? What is he, 12 years old? No, he's a good guy. And he put me on the phone with him. And then Shaggy did what he does, which, as you know, is he talks 100 miles an hour until you say, stop. And then he'll, so he did
without
that.
breathing. Without breathing, too.
Yeah, he breathes through his eyelids like some lava lizard, And we got to be friends. And when I first went to one of his classes years ago, he was teaching for nothing. He had an office full of people, and he was teaching them all this stuff about trucking. And I'd never met him other than on the phone. And we went to lunch, and when we came back from lunch, he stood up in front of his class and he said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we got a special treat for you. We're going to do the broker part of the class, and my new friend, Frank G., is going to come up here and teach it.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, that we're running out of time, Frank, and so appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And appreciate everybody watching on YouTube. If you could, hit the subscribe button. If you really enjoyed this video, so you can see more videos. If you go to Facebook, look for Frank G Trucks or Services. Which is it? It's
G3 Service. It's G3 Trucks and Freight.
Yep.
And on Facebook, I'm Frank G Trucks. So send me a friend request about, join our group, and I think you'll like it. It's a good group. It's a good group of people that like to help people.
Well, and I promise you it is. Well, that's a wrap. Hope everybody has a wonderful week. See you guys.